Hi, I'm Stephen John Drew from Better Podcasting, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're listening to now, the opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Check out all the other geeky podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
I am the Green Arrow.
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite newspaper, the Starling Tribune. I am your chief editor tonight. My name is SP. We have a bunch to report tonight, and your award-winning reporters for this episode number 220 of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
Early release, you're a lucky boy.
Some would say that, and Michelle.
Oh my God, you're shawl shaking out of here.
What a great reference. Everyone, this podcast is recorded on Thursday, November 29th, 2018, live on www.geeks.live.
That's right, SP. And this evening, we'll be discussing this action-packed latest episode of Arrow, as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the past week that could and very well will impact future episodes of Arrow, as well as the greater CW Arrowverse. So that includes The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, possibly Black Lightning, and any other stuff they come up with between now and the end of the show.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. After the show, you can check out our content at GonnaGeek.com, where you can also find other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles.
Thanks, guys, for helping me introduce the show. Michelle, this is such a great episode. I just can't wait to get to it. Why'd you break it down for us?
Sure, this is called the Slabside Redemption, Season 7, Episode 7. It aired Monday, November 26, 2018. It's directed by one of our favorites, James Banford. Credits include 12 episodes of Arrow and 1 Supergirl. Written by Jill Blankenship. Credits include 2 episodes of Arrow and 7 of The Last Ship. And Rebecca Bellato. Credits include 7 episodes of Arrow.
What a great team. Oh, we'll talk about it in a second. But first, before we get in the episode, we are going to talk some ratings for this week's CW DC shows. We do this every week. We actually didn't do it last week. I asked you guys, by the way, the episode of Thanksgiving week, which was Monday of Thanksgiving week in the United States of America, if you guys thought the episode was going to be the same or better or worse than the actual Thanksgiving episode on Thanksgiving Day in 2017. You guys both said it's going to be a little bit better. And guess what, guys? You know the answer to this?
I'm looking at the show
better.
notes, so yes, I do.
It was worse. The same day. The same day ratings were worse by 0.06. But it was in the ballpark.
Looks like
Well, we said 1 million.
You did. So it did get 1 million. It was 1.03, by the way.
It looks like the holidays hurt potentially The Flash the most when you go and look at their normal ratings compared to that.
Yeah, so, okay. We will move on from the Thanksgiving week because, well, it's a special thing, and we all know the biggest rated episodes of the year are coming up in just a few short weeks. It's going to be fun, the crossover. So let's talk about this week. On Sunday, the 25th of November, Supergirl aired the 7th episode of the 4th season titled Rather the Fallen Angel to a live rating of 1.15. Michelle, I know you still keep up with the Supergirl. What did you think of this episode?
I haven't watched it yet.
You haven't? Well, a lot of people haven't either. So yeah, I watched it in the background just so I could try to stay current, and my opinion of the show still hasn't changed. On Monday, the 26th of November, the 7th episode of the 7th season of Arrow aired, the Slabside Redemption, that's this episode we're talking about, to a live rating of 1.31. It is good because this is a fantastic episode. I can't wait to talk about it. And following the Arrow Legends Arrow, the 6th episode of the 4th season, Tender is the Nate, to a live rating of 0.97. The Legends just can't get a break and get over that 1 for a live rating. And this episode certainly deserved it with Biff going out into the field. It was a fun one to watch. If you haven't watched an episode of Legends of Tomorrow, the 6th episode is one to watch. Is really fun. On Tuesday, the 27th of November, Flash aired their 7th episode of the 5th season. Oh, Come All Ye Thankful. It was their Thanksgiving episode to a live rating of 1.79. It was pretty good. Probably not as good as Arrow. Definitely not as good as Arrow this week, but it was okay. And following the Flash, Black Lightning aired the 7th episode of the 2nd season, one to a live rating of 1.06, and the title was The Book of Blood, Chapter 3, The Sanjay. Black Lightning is hit or miss to me. I think the last couple of episodes has been pretty good because they've been introducing South Freeland, which is actually a pretty good storyline, and I'm getting into it there. All right, Michelle, we're going to get into the Slabside Redemption right now. We often talk about the overall theme equated to the title of the episode. I think this has a lot of great connections. Why don't you start us off talking about it?
Well, Slabside's the prison, and there a lot happened in the prison. You can see it as, redemption of Oliver. He really wasn't himself at the beginning of the season, and now he returns to form. Stanley, we finally learned the truth about Stanley, and he seems to want to redeem himself for Oliver. But for me, I think the true redemption is for Ben Turner. That was really surprising for me about how he acted and how that took a turn. I mean, there were seeds planted in the beginning episodes, but to see it happen here, I just really enjoyed it.
It makes me want the Suicide Squad back again. I mean, they're kind of teasing the fact that he might be involved in Argus stuff, and I was like, Suicide Squad? And then I remembered, oh yeah, they aren't going to let them do that because the Academy Award-winning movie.
But here's the thing. We're a few seasons down the road here, and redemption arcs are a big thing in CW. Would you want the Bronze Tiger as part of the Suicide Squad with a bomb in his neck, or would you want him just helping out the team mostly for the good of his heart and wanting to do better things rather than because he's got a bomb in his head?
I'd rather have the Suicide Squad do their thing because there's more there's potential new stuff you can play with there, and you can always cross it over with the rest of things. But when they were setting up the Suicide Squad back in season 2, remember, we had a lot of hope and excitement for oh, this is going to be really cool until they kiboshed it.
Kiboshing is probably the right term to use there. I don't know. Michelle, you weren't with us when we were talking about the Suicide Squad on the team. Do you miss the Suicide Squad on Arrow?
Yes, because I could see where it was going to go. And I think that's part of the problem with seasons like 3 and 4 of Arrow is like they wanted to do certain things, but then the powers that be were like, we're doing a movie like this, so you can't do it. And it's almost like the show just had to like go, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And kind of like a Kermit flail. And they tried to cobble together what they could, because you could tell.
You just equate the Arrow production team to a Kermit flail?
From seasons 3 and 4, I believe that is justified considering how seasons 3 and 4 went.
I can't disagree. It's a great way to describe it.
And remember, we do know the fact that them not getting to play with the Suicide Squad was not something they were planning on.
True, they were going on a certain path, and that path was taken away from them, and it was taken away from them. They were on the path to actually use it, and it was taken away. So yeah, I get it.
Well, one path that was not disrupted is the path of this episode. Last episode, we learned that Oliver was going to get out of prison. It starts with him learning that he's going to be released in 6 hours, and everything seems fine. But Diaz comes along, and he arrives arrested, but has paid off a guard, goes in as a visitor, upsets Oliver, and then goes back in and poses as a guard, which that was interesting.
right, there's continuity errors and common sense errors all over this episode, and the only thing you can say is because plot, as Neil. And by the way, Neil wanted to be with us tonight. He just couldn't because his schedule didn't align with us. But that was one thing, because he's shooting the guards outside as he's being delivered, and there's nobody watching it. Nobody sees it, and there's a whole building behind it. Did you guys see the building behind the in-processing area? You got to think that's an administrative building. Nobody's watching the prison, and with all the windows in the building. So that's continuity error or common sense error number one that I saw in the show. And it just stuck out to me, especially the second time I watched it. I'm like, what? Huh? What? And he's like, oh, just dispose of the bodies. I think somebody's going to see him disposing those other guards or transport cops or whatever they were there. But okay, let's let that go. Diaz apparently can buy off anybody he wants to, and that is his way to control everything. Where is he getting his bankroll again? I forgot.
That's what I was trying to figure out, because it made it seem like the longbow hunters were no longer under his employ, presumably because he's no longer a criminal mastermind running Star City or trying to recapture Star City. So unless he's got a bunch of stuff in the bank, I don't know, because plot?
We have no idea how he got his money. Well, we know he got his money, I guess, from the guy from last season. Oh, I want to say Ben Linus, but that's not true. And then the guy from Person of Interest, whose brain, brain. Yeah,
that guy. So the hacker guy.
The hacker guy. I guess he got the money from him, but we have no idea how Diaz actually amassed all of this stuff and was able to put his plan into place. Like he said, he had a 5-year plan. We never got any hint what the 5-year plan was. But okay, so getting him in there, even though they could have just had him anyway, he takes over. Who cares? Because part of me was like, oh, this was okay. This is, but then we had Oliver. Do that battery plus gum plus wrapper plus an aerosol can help you escape your cell.
Should have remembered from my MacGyver days. I should have known.
And where did he get all this stuff? It was this stuff that Dig gave him, right? Because the special bar of soap with stuff in it and whatever was in the shaving cream or whatever. Did Dig give him that, or did he make on his own? Because remember, he is a League of Assassins trained guy. So this could be like breaking out of prison 101. And Turner broke out of his cell too somehow. So apparently it's not that difficult, but I would think it would be that difficult, especially in Supermax.
This goes to show just how much Oliver was holding himself back from, staying out of trouble. If it was that easy for him to get out of his cell and just start raining chaos down on people, he was totally making a point of being good.
I love how he just simply takes out the guards. He runs up the stairs. He leaps across. Even Stanley was like, ooh. And even I'm like, ooh. And he runs through the hall. And he, of course, does that slide under the door.
Yeah, to get underneath the door. Okay, continuity point number 2. When he's running up the stairs to get to the second level, there's a bunch of guards that are running behind him. He has to fight a guard at the top of level 2. And then he pushes that guard aside, and then he takes there's a guard on level 2 that he fights, and then there's a guard coming down from on top. He fights that guard and then pushes him down. All the while, the 3 guards are taking forever to get up the stairs. So that's like a fight continuity thing. However, I kind of like the whole thing. I mean, he was just using his arrow moves and his raw strength to overpower everybody, and then his speed. Remember, he's fast. Remember, he outran a car in season 1. Or a motorcycle in season 1. And remember, way back then, Chris, I was just I can't believe he did that. So he is fast, and he got underneath the lockdown door as it was coming down. I was a bit surprised that he, even though the prison was locked down, he was still able to move around a little bit, but whatever.
They were distracted by, I don't know. It worked. I mean, again, I talked about this almost every episode this season while he's been in prison. This is what the Supermax movie was supposed to be. that got teased about Green Arrow, 10, 12 years ago at this point. We got it on film this episode, where it's Green Arrow fighting his way out of a Supermax prison. And it was fun. There's obviously some continuity issues, but I mean, this episode I don't think you came into for its strong plot. You came into for its strong ass kicking, for lack of a better term.
There was there was an interview by the TV addict of Stephen Amell that was given to us in the Discord channel, Starling Tribune Discord channel, on the Gonna Geek Discord server, which you can find at gonnageek.com/discord. And
Yes. Is it about how the stunt team and stuff?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one thing that Oliver said. He said it was basically Beth Schwartz going to Bam Bam and saying, have fun. And then all of this is for that.
That's my news article. Ugh.
It's a
Well, there's
sneak
more-
peek
there's-
of the news section.
There's more of it, by the way. There's more in that. So we'll talk about that later.
Okay. So Diaz does his speech and shooting guards, blah, blah, blah. And then we have the cool hallway moment where Oliver basically gets to be Batman, right, Chris?
Pretty much. I mean, he's channeling his inner Batman, and it's delightful. Delightful. Think back like Batman Begins when he's in the shadows doing things. That's kind of what we get here. Coming out of the shadows, taking people out before he gets confronted by some bigger bads. That's right, Brick and Samson are back, guys.
Yeah, and SP, were you surprised that Samson and Brick were able to take Oliver down?
Yeah, a little bit, because Oliver had just taken all those guards, highly trained guards, by the way, taking all those highly trained guards down. And then all of a sudden he comes into Brick and Samson, who he's fought before in the fight ring and Prison Fight Club. You know, number one lesson about prison fight clubs, you don't talk about Prison Fight Club, but he's beat these guys before. And all of a sudden they're beating him. So I had to head scratch a little bit there. I mean, Samson was using the pepper spray or whatever it was. We'll just say it's pepper spray. I don't know exactly what it was supposed to be. And that was supposed to incapacitate Oliver, and it kind of did for a little bit. And really the only thing that saved Oliver was the fact that Turner came in on that. But yeah, Brick and Samson, they're very capable on their own right, but Oliver has proven that he can beat them time and time again in a fair fight.
Yeah, but Oliver also just fought off like 20 SWAT team guys too, is how I was looking at it, is that he's been relatively inactive in comparison to his Green Arrow days. Like, he's been sitting in a cell, he's been lifting weights, and he's probably been walking around the yard and fighting occasionally. It's not quite the same kind of athletic pursuits he was having when he was a vigilante out in the streets. So it's possible his conditioning's off a little bit, and you've got to realize he just fought for his life against a ton of highly trained guards, so he might not be at 100% when he gets confronted by these two. And remember, Samson on his own had handed Oliver his butt at one point in time too in the past. So I kind of looked at it as Oliver's a bit tired, and this is going to be one of the longest days of his life.
And we got that great moment where Turner comes in and actually saves Oliver. Earlier in the episode, Oliver confronts Stanley and says, yeah, I know you're the killer of the guard. You used me. I'm not going to help you when I get out. And he goes to Turner, who's in the hole. And I really love the way it was shot when Oliver's outside and the light is just on Turner's like head and shoulders and stuff. And then it's shot at that high angle at first. And Oliver's is saying, you know, I'm going to help you. You deserve a second chance and everything. And here's Turner coming in and actually going, okay, maybe I can redeem myself a little bit. And he's like, he turns on Brick and punches him. He's like, I've been waiting a long time to do that.
Yeah, so while we could see this coming a million miles away, once Oliver and Turner had their conversation, everyone and their brother probably knew, oh, they're going to work together later in this episode. I'm totally okay with it because I enjoyed just watching those two fight together and some of the banter that went back and forth. And as much as we also knew this was coming, Oliver's realization that, gee, since I've been in the inside, maybe there's shades of gray to things. Just because you're a criminal doesn't mean you're bad, just like Turner's been trying to say. So I enjoyed it. We all saw it coming, but it was fun still.
The Turner redemption arc goes a long, long way. You know, this is not something that has happened overnight. I remember when he first showed up screen, I was like, ooh, who is that? Because I didn't know the comic background. And he was a pretty formidable guy to Arrow back in the day. And now he seems like he's turning the corner. He will never live down the stuff that he's done in the past, right? That's part of who he is, just like the stuff that Oliver has done is part of who he is. But if Oliver can be redeemed, and we've seen some terrible things that Oliver has done, I think Turner can be redeemed along the way. Laurel is another story just because of the history of the character, but Turner definitely has this ability. And like I said, I could see him working with Argus eventually. I just hope it's not with a bomb in his neck, in his head, sort of thing. And I don't think the character is going to go away. I think the way they left this episode, that Turner will be back in this season of Arrow.
I hope so. It would be fun. I would love to see something there, even if it's just that he's working with Argus and there's some kind of Argus op that brings him back to town. I mean, we got Slade Wilson to come back for a two-parter, so anything can happen at this point in time.
Did you just say Slade Wilson is coming back in season 7 of Arrow? I think you did.
If they did bring Slade Wilson back for season 7 of Arrow, that would be the best thing ever. And I don't know how else to describe it. We've already talked about numerous times on this show how much I enjoy Manu Bennett's portrayal of Slade Wilson and how they just show him as an unstoppable tank. So yeah, bring him in, have him lead the new Suicide Squad that they can't call Suicide Squad because they don't want to steal the name of the Academy Award winning movie.
True. Well, we would love to see Slade Wilson, but back to this amazing episode. Turner and Oliver do work well together. There's that cell block scene where Oliver's on one level, Turner's on another. Oliver has that great jump kick and everything. This is one huge fight episode. This is amazing.
It is multi-level fight, Bam Bam. I know he listens to this podcast every once in a while. I have no idea if he's going to listen to this episode or not. He should. Bam Bam, if you are listening, thank you very much for bringing back the multi-level fight. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you have heard me reference over and over again that multi-level fight back in season 2. And I've been saying this is a tri-level fight that was so good. This was an homage to that, and it was its own thing as well. The first time I saw it, I thought, well, it's just quick cuts going back and forth. Oh, no, the camera actually pans up and down a couple of times before it then cuts to both levels. It was great. The only different thing that I could think could have made it better if they could have panned that camera out and got both levels at the same time. But I know what they were doing. Remember, this is not a Netflix series. They're not taking a month for an episode. This is 8 days to actually produce each episode, and the fight choreography in each episode has to be done within that 8 days. So you can't really do a long continuous fight shot in 8 days, the choreography and the filming of it and everything. So I will give them exactly what they did. It was an amazing shot for routine CW TV show. It was good. It was as good as this show's ever been, in my opinion.
Well said. I can't add anything beyond that. You nailed it.
And so did you, Mr. Bam Bam. So did you.
Before the we learn more with Diaz coming in and Oliver and Diaz, we finally get to learn the truth about Stanley. Stanley is waiting in a room that Oliver's going into and sedates him. And I know we were like, is he on the page? Is he this? We just learned he's just a regular, serial killer?
Yeah.
He's that creepy guy that you want nothing ever to do with. And he's not even that quiet guy next door. Oh, he's just so quiet. He's that weird guy next door that people say, yeah, something was never right with him. That's what Stanley is. So apparently he has not been working for Diaz, although I suppose there's still some way that he could have been working for Diaz. You have no idea who let him out. Somebody let him out or he got out somehow. So he's either very resourceful or he's got some friends, and it could have been Diaz himself that let him out of the commissary because Oliver locked him in. And then Stanley, well, he does something later, but let's talk about that later. I was kind of shocked that he drugged Oliver to incapacitate, and he said, I just need to talk to you. But I don't think he ever, well, first of all, Stanley's not right in the head. But I don't think he ever thought it all the way through that what am I going to do with Oliver once I have him tied up in this room? I mean, what was his point? What was he really trying to get to?
I don't think he's thinking rationally. I think he's thinking that he can use his words to convince Oliver to help him. Because remember, up until this realization that Stanley actually killed the guard, he and Oliver had a pretty decent working relationship, near friendly, you could say at times. So I think his hope was that he could smooth talk his way back into the Green Arrow's good graces, and that's what would get him out of the maximum security side of the house and get him out of jail.
Yeah, Stanley wanted them to run away together, basically. He's having this odd fixation on the Green Arrow now. He says that what he did was like what the Green Arrow does, and we can go out and I can be your sidekick.
Yeah, I mean, he's been strangely focused on the Green Arrow since he came into things. The Stanley we get here is not very much like his comic book counterpart from the comics. I mean, the only similarity is they're both killers, really.
Yeah, and Stanley definitely lives up to that at the end of the episode. But before we get there, we have much more fights to talk about, right, Michelle?
Yeah, we got the big mess hall scene. Diaz has a contraption and he starts to overload the system, but Oliver enters. Diaz knocks him down, and then Turner tosses down a pillowcase with soda.
That was fantastic. That he's just beating people down with a makeshift weapon that's a soda cans rather, in a pillow. It was fun. Now those cans would explode with those impacts, I imagine, but it was fun nonetheless.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, so why are they doing soda here? Because if not the first content, probably the second content, the pop cans would explode and then lose all the weight that would make them dangerous. What you really want to do in this case is use like a soup can or something like that. That can dent, but it's not going to explode with that much force, at least not right away, or several of them, whatever. But the reason they didn't is they don't want kids doing this. So I get it, why they're not showing, why they were depicting pop cans versus like soup cans or something like that. So
I
yeah,
didn't
I
even
get it.
think about the kid aspect, but that's a good point.
Yeah. So just take it into consideration that he was using some heavy stuff in a pillowcase to give a pretty much just a generic prison shower. When that's what prison pillowcase shower, basically. I've also heard of it in military. What was that? Full Metal Jacket, where they did it with soap in it in the military. That's pretty common too. So yeah, this has been a trope in films for some time, but I didn't expect it to work as well as it did. It worked really well.
It made for a cool visual too.
Yeah, it's the bigger version of the roll of quarters in a sock.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you get that much weight and that much force just winging around, that much momentum, it's gonna hurt. So yeah, it took down everybody pretty easily that was there, and they were able to save the guards because of it too, which is what this is all about. Oliver wanted to get to Diaz, but remember, Oliver is playing the Green Arrow, and he's trying to save as many people as possible. He's trying to get people outside of the prison. He's trying not to have people die, and especially the guards, because the guards that are left are pretty much innocent for the most part, except for the one that Diaz paid off. So yeah, and Diaz's clothes, by the way, came from a guard that he pretty much, I don't think he would have paid him off. I think he killed that guard.
That was how I read it, was that he took the clothes of a dead man.
Yeah, so Oliver is trying to protect these guys, and I have to hand it to Oliver here. That was probably a good decision.
Yeah, he gets he gets Turner to take the guards to, safety and everything. And in the mess hall, we get Turner versus Brick Part 2, where Turner wraps the rope around Brick, tosses the rope down to Oliver, and then Turner basically dumps Brick and uses him as a counterweight to bring Oliver up.
Yeah, I'll allow it. I love the rope work things when they put it into the show. I thought it was fun.
Brick was not long for this world. Remember, he had 6 minutes, or else he was gonna
That wasn't Brick. That was Stardust.
Stardust. Okay.
Yeah. I forgot his actual name all of a sudden, so I just went with his code name.
Yeah, he went all the way to the end. Matter of fact, he was. Well, we'll talk about that. I don't want to get into that right now. But yeah, Brick was kind of shifty the whole way through. The one thing that I scratched my head about a little bit is that Brick was supposed to be an equal to Diaz at one point, and Diaz I think Diaz allowed it, but Diaz was like, "I'm going to take you out at some point." You could just tell through his mind that, okay, well, we're here, let's have some fun, but no, you ain't running my city, sort of thing in there. So I thought about that for a second. Yeah.
I know the scene you're talking about, because Diaz was like, if it wasn't for him, I'd be running Star City. And Brick was like, yeah, me too. He's a cockroach that won't die.
Yeah. And Diaz didn't say a thing, but that Kirk Acevedo was thinking in his mind, yeah, true, but I'm going to make sure that you don't run my city either, sort of thing.
Just some good supervillain bonding time right there, guys.
Is there such a thing as supervillain bonding? Because they all just want to kill each other at the end.
We should ask the Legion of Doom.
I guess supervillain bonding could be true in like the Venture Brothers.
Yes, it most certainly can.
Can't wait for that to come back on.
Well, Diaz ends up causing an electrical fire. And, well, this is when Turner and Samson fight. And Samson gets kicked into a fire. And, well, burns.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty disfigured if he lives through that. Plus, the fact his femoral artery's still been cut, even though there's a tourniquet on it. Probably not in great shape.
Yeah, tourniquet doesn't necessarily... Well, I guess it might stop the bleeding from coming out. But
At the cost of the leg.
Yeah, he's going to lose the leg. But
maybe the flames helped, sear the vein, the artery shut. It, cauterized it because the flames were so hot, and that's what saved his life. And he'll come back in a weird skull and crossbones... Oh, wait, wrong movie. Never mind.
So I was thinking about Samson and Brick, or Samsung and Turner, Samson and Brick through this, and I was thinking that how are they going to bring him back? Well, I don't necessarily think Brick's going to be able to come back, although I suppose he could. Samsung, that's a 50-50, where if he comes back, he's going to be horribly disfigured and he's going to have a major axe to grind. So it's going to be a good use of a callback, like at the end of the season. Because at the end of the season, we don't know if the show's going to be renewed for another season yet or not, right? It hasn't been renewed yet, right?
Not that I know of. No.
I didn't miss anything? Okay. So the show's not going to be renewed yet. So if the show is actually finished, I won't say canceled because we're at 7 years. If the show is finished after 7 years, are they going to bring back callbacks from this season, or are they going to bring back callbacks for the 7 seasons? And either way, would Samsung be something that they would call back? I think yes is the answer there. So we might see him again, but I don't know. It's 50-50 shot.
With him getting burned up like that, they set it up so that if Cody Rhodes isn't available, they can bring in someone else to do the role, because all you got to do is just put him in a costume of some kind, someone of similar build and physique, because Cody Rhodes is kind of a busy guy in the indie wrestling circuit right now.
I think he'd want to come back for the PR.
Potentially. It's just a matter of how that fits when you're touring internationally and stuff like that.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I was thinking one episode, like the last episode of the season or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the fire going and the prison almost empty, or at least, the cell block and such, we finally get Oliver versus Diaz. Man, Diaz and Oliver, first they both have blades. They start on one of the upper levels, and Diaz is just wailing on Oliver at first, right, SP?
Yeah, Diaz is winning this fight, plain and simple. And Diaz says prison makes you weak during that fight, which I thought was hilarious because usually prison makes you stronger. But he was saying prison makes you weak, and he was just taking it to Oliver, and Oliver was losing big time. And it wasn't until Diaz basically said that Felicity was going to kill me, and she was that Oliver found enough adrenaline to take him down. It was really one move at the end that turned it, where he took the knife that Diaz had and stabbed him again. But that was just an epic slug out fight. These two have slugged it out before, and it was good to see that. And of course, it's set up to see them slug it out again. And I have no idea if Diaz is going to be the main big bad from this point on in the season, but he is not gone. You're going to see him again.
And remember, part of the reason why Oliver's losing being at this is they didn't really touch on it in this episode, but remember previously Diaz got those drugs or whatever to inject himself with, so he's superpowered at the moment. Or at least enhanced to some extent.
Yeah. That's fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, this almost reminded me of Bane, when Bane released all the basically released all the inmates from Arkham and beat Batman down, and then eventually, like broke his back, because Diaz hasn't done anything. He's all like rested up and fresh. And here's Oliver, who has fought the entire time. And Diaz is like amped up. I'm surprised Oliver lasted as long as he did. I mean, I think that shows just how strong he is and all that training and conditioning that he's done for many years.
Yeah, I don't know if I talked about it in this show before or not. I think I have, but to refresh everybody, at one point in time, I was actually the foreman of my grand jury where I live. And part of our duties was we had to go into the prison as the impartial civilian body for the county. And we had to do prison checks, basically, to make sure that the prisoners were treated humanely and that the processes were being followed and so on and so forth. One of the things that I learned during that whole thing is that the food that the prisoners are given is really regulated. So we see these stereotypical prison shots of all these weight rooms and stuff like that. Prisons don't actually have that. And one of the reasons they don't have that, first of all, they can be used as weapons, I'm sure. But another reason is that prisoners can't actually build muscle when they're in prison. Now, I know that's not the stereotypical thing that you see on TV here, but if this was real life, if this was true, Oliver would have actually lost muscle mass while he was in prison, because there's no way to keep it up while was there, unless he's a superhuman, which I don't know. We're in metas. He could be, but we haven't seen that. So I think absolutely, yeah, he was being overpowered, and he found his way to win, which was, the hero moment there, which is great. One thing that happened there afterwards, which is another break in continuity that I just want to point out, is to get out of his prison cell, he used that bomb to destroy the lock, right?
Yes.
So he destroys the lock, and it is in his prison cell, because we see his book and his picture that's in the prison cell. And he walks out with the book in the prison, and then he closed the door and supposedly locks it, but the lock was just blown up. So there is no lock to the cell. I don't know what Oliver was thinking.
It just looked cool.
It did. It looked really cool.
It was more of a moral kind of thing, or a symbolic, that's what I meant to say, symbolic gesture.
I see. So he knew that Diaz was going to escape.
Or maybe the maintenance guys were working overtime. They'd already fixed that while everyone was fighting somewhere else. I don't know.
There was a hole in the lock. I could clearly see it.
Maybe it's invisible. I don't know. Maybe
so
Cisco
you're
made
saying
something.
It's a black lightning camouflage lock. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we'll go with that. Because, I don't know. You're right. It doesn't make any sense, but it looks cool on screen. So I'm okay with it. Because let's be honest, the whole prison's a crap show at this point in time with how much stuff's been going on. I mean, how many prisoners do you think got out during this, on top of all the guards and other prisoners that are injured and dead?
I don't think the exterior was ever compromised.
I mean, with that kind of panic and chaos going on.
Remember, the prison is on lockdown, and the lockdown was successfully executed.
Fair point.
All right.
And then at the end, Oliver gives Turner the book of Count Monte Cristo, and Oliver just walks out of prison. Here's another moment that just looks cool, because usually when you exit prison, you have to, you turn over your prison garb. You're given back what you came in with. So if you were wearing jeans and something and you had a necklace, you get that. There's a checkout process that all prisons go through. But here's another moment where you get the beaten and bloody Oliver, coming out with and being met with, Diggle and Felicity. It's another, gee, that looks cool moment.
Yes, exactly.
I think the prison itself looked cool too, right? Because the prison is on this outcropping on this big cliff. So that was pretty cool. I think it was maybe meant to be on an island at one point in time, but clearly not because it's attached to the mainland. It was a pretty good spot because it was protected on all three sides, which makes me wonder what side the morgue leads out on.
Yeah, good point. Hopefully not cliffside, because that's a long fall.
Yeah, and there's 3 cliff sides too. So
Yeah.
Right. Which way is it facing? Anyway, it was a cool visual that they put together, and I don't remember seeing it in previous episodes, but I might not have been looking closely enough. This was like at least 3 shots of it in the episode, and it looked really cool.
I have 3 questions for you.
Uh-oh. Is
Quest.
it multiple choice?
Oh, they're just, do you think questions? Do you think we're going to get Stanley back?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's not happening. Stanley, of course, left. We didn't talk about it. Stanley left, and he cut or he stabbed Brick on the way out, and Brick is supposedly dead, and Stanley got out via the morgue. So, yeah, we're going to see Stanley again, and he's going to be as bad as they come.
If he's so fixated on the Green Arrow still, he won't be able to make himself stay away. Assuming Oliver puts the suit on again. Note, if you watch the preview for next week's episode, he puts the suit on again.
Spoilers!
But no mask.
Yeah, that's right. He had the little...
He
had
picked
the
it
little eye
up, but the
thing.
scenes of him fighting in costume, he had no mask on. That's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that next week.
Second question. It does seem the longbow hunters aren't working with Diaz anymore. Do you think they might come back either on their own or working for someone else? Because they were really cool. Or do you think that's it for them?
I think it's it for them. They might name drop them again at some point, but the implication was Diaz paid them a bunch of money to come help him out, and if no one else is going to be paying them a bunch of money to do stuff, well, hell, they normally just don't bring people back like that. I want them to. It'd be cool. I just don't see it happening.
We've seen, at least in the flashback, characters like that come and go. If they do a big callback final episode or penultimate episode of the season, we might see them back for a final fight, but I just don't see them hanging around for the rest of the season. We could be completely wrong. They could be the big bads for the rest of the season, for all I know.
Is Diaz dead?
No. We'll see him again. Kirk Acevedo is too good to be killed in prison. Besides, he was left in the prison cell and then he was gone. Of course he escaped.
I mean, they built it up this season that Kirk Acevedo and Diaz would be one of the big enemies of the season, not just like done in 7 episodes. So, and wasn't he promoted like series regular or something like that?
I think so. He is really, really good. He's what a great villain. Kirk is totally, I've said it before, Kirk is a great actor because he plays this borderline character that he could be good, could be bad, right? It's like the Punisher, right? Could be good, could be bad. He's that type of character, and you never know which one you're going to get. Here on Arrow, you're clearly getting a bad guy, but he plays it so well. He's using all that bad guy stuff. It must be fun to be Kirk. By the way, I've been following him on Twitter. He's definitely got a thing or two to say about politics, that's for sure. But he plays that on screen and is great, and I can't wait to see him on screen again. It is fun seeing him on screen, and I don't have a problem with Oliver letting him live because, well, we're not even halfway done with the season. So I want more Kirk.
That scene in the visitation, that was amazing.
Yeah. Again, a little continuity thing. When he says, I'm going to kill you today, I'm like, no, you're not. The crossover's coming in 2 weeks. You're not going to kill Oliver Queen. We need him around.
And do note, we also called the fact that Oliver would be out of prison right before the crossover. We were right. We finally got one right again after striking out so much.
Thanks, Beth, for letting us get that right.
Yeah, we needed a win.
Yeah, it's going to be, that scene what was the most powerful part of that scene for you, Michelle?
I don't know what it was, but when he like took the phone receiver down and like the way he was just holding it and just speaking to it, this whole notion of, I thought it was a great foreshadowing and great technique because it really, Diaz was like, I'm the one in control. I'm the one talking, and it doesn't matter what you say or do. What I am saying is going to happen because I'm Ricardo Diaz, and this is what's happening. And I for some reason that just, stuck with me.
It winds Oliver up so much that he can't get out to the guard. That's Ricardo Diaz. He just takes his phone and starts slamming the window trying to get at Diaz. That's how good he wound Oliver up.
Yeah, he was playing with his head, and I enjoyed it a great deal.
All right. So, Chris, is there anything else you want to talk about when it comes to this episode?
Just that we finally got one right, and that's that Oliver gets out of prison shortly before the crossover. Finally got it. And then they don't have to make him grow a beard back super quickly to go back to prison after the crossover. I wish he'd keep the beard, though.
SP?
Yeah, I think the beard actually helped with the stunt doubles for some of these things. And we'll talk about it later, but there were some stunt doubles, and some of the stuff was Stephen Amell himself in the stunts. But it was a fun episode. It was an amazing conclusion of the initial arc of the season. I just want to say thank you, Beth Schwartz, and thank you, James Bamford, for making it worth sticking with the show for 7 years. This episode was great. Thank you very much.
Oliver is free and shaven in next week's episode called Unmasked. It's season 7, episode 8. It will air Monday, December 3rd, 2018. Felicity stands by her recent decisions regarding her family. Meanwhile, Diggle and Lila continue to look into the Dante painting that Curtis found. Directed by Alexandra LaRoche and written by Oscar Balderrama and Beth Schwartz.
Live from the Starling Tribune main news desk on floor 52 of the Starling Tribune Tower, it's the weekly news roundup with award-winning chief news anchor Michelle Ely. And now, Michelle Ely.
Well, my bit of news is Stephen Amell praising the stunt team for the most action-packed Arrow episode ever. He started very proud of tonight's episode. It was a logistical quagmire because of the amount of stunt work involved. All departments had to be on their games, and the producers had to have a ton of faith in us, and in particular the stunt department. I hope it showed. It definitely did.
Oh, yeah.
He goes on, this week they just turned the stunt department loose. It was the shortest script that I've ever read because it had such little stage direction in it. It was basically Beth going to James Bamford and saying, this is the through line of what happens to Oliver from start to finish. Do what you can in the time that you have. Go. There's some specific stuff like Stanley gets Oliver with the needle and Oliver's tied up or whatever. But all that choreography, that was something that the stunt department, I think, really excelled in. We're not going to get nominated for a stunt Emmy because we don't get nominated for a stunt Emmy, but we should get nominated for a stunt Emmy. And this is very true. This rival they had to have worked on. I wonder, sometimes if you have scripts written up in advance, you can, shoot certain things at certain times. But I think they had to have rehearsed this choreography more than 8 days. I think this must have been something that they were starting with because it was just amazing work.
I was thinking of some of the fights, right? Like the multi-level fight. And I was thinking of how they pulled that off. Like they had to progress from one side to the other. And when they got to the other side, that there was a stairwell there. I don't think they created the set with this scene in mind, although they might have, originally. I think they made the choreography specifically to fit what was there. So they had to think it up since the beginning of the season, since the sets were put together. And for that, it was really good for the time that they had to put it together.
Yeah, whether it was the 8 days or if they had a little bit more time, it's still not Netflix time at all. Because
No,
I think that Daredevil one, I think they talked that they did that was almost like 2 weeks just for that one scene or something.
I think it was the first scenes that they shot, or part of the first scenes that they shot for Daredevil season 1. You're talking about the hallway scene fight
Yeah.
in season 1 Daredevil. Yeah, when we went to what was it, Indie PopCon, we were listening in on the man himself, on Daredevil himself, and he was regurgitating what had happened in that first scene. And Charlie Cox was he was heartfelt about it. He said, everybody talks about it and everything, but it was amazing that we were able to pull off what we did when we did, and we didn't realize how groundbreaking it was going to be. And it takes a lot of effort to throw something like that together. So maybe they were rehearsing this in advance, but I guarantee you they only had up to 8 days to really film it, because that's really all the budget that they have is for 8 days. And they might have been saving up a little bit for like extras for the fight choreography, but they had extras all along in the prison. Like there's prisoners all the time. I was really watching a couple of the scenes, and like in the hallways where you had mass mayhem going on, rarely did you see actual faces. Most of the time you just saw the backs of people's heads as they were running away or something like that. So obviously it seemed like a bunch of stunt doubles, and they really did a good job. So I agree with Oliver, or by Stephen Amell here. They should get nominated. I don't know if they'll win or not, but they definitely should get nominated for a stunt Emmy this season, especially if they keep up this pace.
Yeah, it was amazing. And as we know, the crossover is coming out. There's been another trailer coming out. We're getting more information about how Barry Allen and Oliver Queen are waking up, and they realize their identities have been switched and they need to go to Supergirl. We're very close to the crossover. I think I'm just sort of like really excited for it to happen. And I'm just sort of, I think for me right now, I think I'm sort of just like turning off the spoiler thing. I think I just want to let it play out.
Well, I think they're playing it smart right now. They're not giving much away on this crossover. I mean, we thought they were by being like, oh, John Wesley Shipp flashes in it, but you see him, he has one line in the trailers and stuff like that. So it's enough to make you go, how the hell are they going to do this? I haven't watched one of those trailers like, oh, they're going to do this, this, and this to make that happen. I'm like, whoa, what are they going to do?
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm a little less excited by this trailer versus the other two that we saw, the one with both Barry Allen and Oliver Queen. I think that was last week, actually. A little less excited because we're getting a little bit more of the story, and I don't know if I'm going to be excited about it. But this is crossover. This is the big thing. If you take a look at the rate, I actually went back and I looked back at the last few years of ratings. There is a clear spike in all of the shows for the crossover. They know it in CW, so I think they know not to disappoint. I don't think Beth Schwartz is going to let it disappoint in Arrow, but I mean, she's only got part of it, so we'll see what it comes out to be. I agree with you, Michelle, at this point. I don't want to be spoiled beyond this. I just want to let it happen. I want to have fun just watching it as a consumer, as a watcher. I just want to watch it. So yeah, we won't be talking about it next week, other than we're really excited to see it.
Well, that's it for this week's news. Now, Chris, we are part of a larger podcast network, right?
That's right. We are part of the Gonna Geek Network. You can see it on my mic flag here if you're watching the live video version of the show. But there's 25 plus different shows on the Gonna Geek Network that cover a variety of topics. You're used to shows like us, the Starling Tribune. We cover Arrow and then Legends Tomorrow in our off time. We've got other shows, though, that talk about video games, tabletop gaming, geek culture. There's a ton of different geeky and nerdy podcasts you can find over at GonnaGeek.com. And as much as I would love to tell you about every single show on the network, that would be a podcast in and of itself. But what I can do is give you a taste of one show and say, hey, you might want to go check this one out. So we are going back to the land down under. We're going back to Australia for Game Life Balance Australia, episode 72, entitled Dr. Tetris. This week, the boys thought they'd do something out of character and review a game that was actually released within living memory, Tetris Effect for the PS4. So join AC and Rob as they talk about the latest iteration of the famous Tetris franchise and try to pinpoint what it is that makes this game so darn fun. Also in this riveting episode, AC is dead and has been replaced by a mouse with a soundboard. Peppers the Wonder Horse is somehow still alive, and Rob is still alive, but dead on the inside. So there's a lot going on with episode 72 of Game Life Balance Australia. You can check it and all the other shows on the network out by going over to gonnageek.com and clicking on the network button at the top of the page.
Woohoo!
That all being said, it is time for us to start wrapping things up. So a big thank you to everyone who did watch the show live on www.geeks.live and participate in the chat room. But also thank yous go out to those of you that download the audio version from StarlingTribune.com or catch the video version when it's uploaded to the Gonna Geek YouTube channel at youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
If you happen to have an Amazon device, you can enable our podcast as a skill. I was actually just listening to our latest episode as a skill right before this episode. Also, we now have a Discord server, which you can find at www.gonnageek.com/Discord, in which we've actually been having a lot of discussion about this very episode that we're talking about in the Starling Tribune channel of the Discord server. So come on and join our chat there all week long, and it is fun. Also, remember, you can find us as we record live at www.geeks.live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and 4:30 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays, and join the live chat.
We would love to hear from you. We are the Starling Tribune on Facebook and Instagram, at Starling Tribune on Twitter, and you can call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. Well, this brings us to the end of another great episode. Any last words before we sign off? At Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag exploded pop can.
At the Chris Farrell.
Hashtag that's some magic soap.
And I am at Michelle Ely signing off with hashtag RIP Ollie's goatee. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at gonnageek.com or check out our archive at starlingtribune.com. Visit gonnageek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.